Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter. I am Bryson Carver, as always, in a much better mood in terms of the NBA than I was on Friday's show. My Golden State Warriors took Game 2 and took it convincingly, as I said they would, to tie the series at a game apiece. As the series will now, the NBA Finals, rather, not just any series now, the NBA Finals is going to shift back to Boston, Massachusetts for Games 3 and Game 4. On Wednesday and on Friday. So a lot to talk about this week. Rory Mitchell is going to be joining the show today. Great guest. I've been on his show on Across the Pond Sports. He's also got another podcast himself. We'll talk about that as well as what's going on with the NBA. Also, Draymond Green. Everybody's on Draymond today. I'm going to defend him not just because I'm a Warriors fan, but just in the context of NBA history. I'm going to defend Draymond Green, as well as the Quin Snyder stepping down from the Jazz. I think that means it is the end of Donovan Mitchell in Utah, and Klay Thompson is in a complete slump. And weirdly enough, I actually feel pretty good about it. And I'll explain later. And of course, at the end of the show, I will discuss and predict Game 3 of the 2022 NBA Finals, because by the time I come back on Thursday, the game will have been played the night prior. So let's jump right into it. Game 2 of the NBA Finals in 2022 with the Celtics leading 1-0 at the time. And look, there's no question. I said on Friday, it's not an elimination game. It was actually, we were like 3 games away from this being an elimination game, but this was a must-win. My Warriors had to win this basketball game because in NBA history, 5 teams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, have come back from a 2-0 deficit in the NBA Finals. None of them came back from 2-0 after losing the first 2 games at home. So Golden State would pretty much have to defy the odds had they lost last night, which of course they did not. It was kind of a nip and tuck ball game throughout the first half. It was a lot of offense in the first quarter, really an ugly second quarter for both teams. Golden State only scored 21, Boston scored 20. It was just kind of ugly in the second quarter. And the third quarter, as the Warriors always do, as frankly they did in Game 1. They just couldn't finish the fourth quarter of Game 1. But as they always do in this dynasty, in part because Steve Kerr is the best coach in basketball in terms of halftime adjustments, in part due to veteran leadership, not panicking, being at home, all of that, the Golden State Warriors absolutely smoked the Boston Celtics in that third quarter. As a matter of fact, the third quarter stats are quite jarring. Golden State outscored Boston 35-14 in the quarter. So basically, 5 touchdowns to 2, if we're thinking in football terms. Boston shot 4 for 17 from the field, while Golden State shot 11 for 23 from the field, and Boston made 2 threes compared to Golden State's 7. In that quarter, Steph Curry scored 14 of his 29 points. It was outstanding, was dancing on Al Horford and Marcus Smart, dancing on everybody, the behind the backs, and obviously knocking down step back 3 after step back 3. Steph was phenomenal last night. 29 points, you don't think about it, that is phenomenal. And I said on Friday's show, I said if Steph gets 34 in Game 2, it's not going to be an efficient 34 because Boston's going to change a lot of their defensive concepts, and they did. Steph struggled to sort of get his shot going, early in the game. Come third quarter, though, that was all about a great player being a great player. There's nothing that Boston could have done. I mean, Al Horford on that one shot was, he was dancing. He was doing the tango, it looks like. And he still got up a good contest because he's 6'10" on a 6'3" guy. But it didn't matter because great players are going to, Mark Jackson says great offense beats great defense any day of the week. And that's what Steph Curry did. Jordan Poole, of course, who had a miserable Game 1 and a miserable first half of Game 2, came on like that in the fourth quarter. The pool party got started just a little late, but it still got started. He obviously hit the deep 3 on the 2-for-1 opportunity with about 38 seconds left in the third. And at the end of the third quarter, he hit the bomb from basically half court, nothing but that at the buzzer to put the Golden State Warriors up by 23 points. So what are my takeaways from this game? I sort of gave it, sort of like a quick overview of that. Now, again, I'm going to talk about Draymond Green and things of that nature, later in the show, or at least in the segment. But sort of my takeaway from the game is this. Boston knew they did not have to win that game. Golden State knew they did. Do I think Golden State's a better basketball team than Boston? I do, but I don't think it's by much. You say, wait, but you picked the Warriors to win in 5 games. I did. I did, and I like I said, I backed off that prediction. Listen, I don't know if we're going to win 3 straight against these guys, but the gist of it was Boston is just as good as Golden State in some cases, certainly on the defensive end, slightly better in a lot of aspects of the game. That's why it was such a fun matchup for these finals, because both teams do the same things really, really well at a championship level. The difference was Boston's late game execution was putrid all playoffs long. Golden State's was nearly flawless. And I thought that was going to decide the series. I thought the youth of Boston, the experience of Golden State would come into play as well. And so, I don't think we've necessarily seen that through the first 2 games. My prediction is this. I'm going to give my prediction for Game 3 at the end of the show, but mark it down that I said this today, June the 6th of 2022. My prediction is that, look, we are going to know by Game 4 who's going to win this series. We're going to know by Game 4. We're going to know Friday night at 11:30 Eastern or 8:30 if you're on the West Coast. We're going to know who's going to win the series by Game 4. Whether it's Boston's up 3-1, Golden State's up 3-1, or it's a tied series. Yes, even if it's a tied series. Because you can see little matchups in the game. You can see how the game is coached, right? Who can win on the road? Who can win at home? Remember, Boston has struggled at home. Only a game above 500 in their home building these playoffs, 5-4. So that's all going to factor as this series goes on. But at the end of the day, Golden State had to win that game last night. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Had to win that game. And to their credit, they did. So sort of my takeaway from here is with Game 3 coming up, Golden State's a great road team. Boston has been a slightly above average home team these playoffs. And we know about the Warriors streak. It's mind-blowing. 26 consecutive playoff series that they have won at least one road game. It's crazy. Like that doesn't just happen. But to the credit of the Warriors, once again, they were able to play at a high level in that third quarter, and they're able to take the show on the road because great defense travels, right? Ball movement travels, great coaching travels, leadership from Steph and Draymond, and frankly even Iguodala from the bench travels. So being able to rely on all those different things is going to help you in the long run. And it did for the Warriors. There's no question about it. But like I said, I was not shocked in the slightest about the outcome of the game. I said Golden State will win. They do it convincingly. And again, that third quarter was the difference. Because Boston, albeit in garbage time, outscored the Warriors in the fourth. But of course, at that point, it didn't matter. But and I'll talk about Klay Thompson later in the show. Obviously, he was actually pretty good, I thought, defensively, but had a horrendous offensive game. And we'll talk about sort of getting in his rhythm. Along with my guest who'll be coming on in a few minutes, Rory Mitchell. But something that I think I'll move to Draymond after this with Steph Curry. And I talked about this on Friday's show, and to the credit of John Rivera, shout out John, Fan Perspective Podcast, go check it out. But he was on the show on Thursday, so hours before Game 1. And he was ahead of this for me. Like, I'm very high on Jason Tatum. John's a Jason Tatum fan as well. But something that he pointed out is like, look, basically, I'm paraphrasing for John, but does Tatum really want it? He is a superstar in talent, no question. But does he want it? And through these first 2 games, I'm questioning that. Like, I'm really questioning that. I'm starting to see a little bit of Luka in Jason Tatum. And here's why. I talked about Luka, early in the show, a couple weeks ago when the Western Conference Finals were going on, that Luka plays really good team basketball when the game is fairly tight and definitely when Dallas is in front. But once, these moments in basketball games when a team's going on a run, third, fourth quarter, and it's starting to slip away a little bit, he goes hero ball. Or he runs from the moment. He's not about those situations. I'm seeing that from Jason Tatum. And I said on Friday's show, even after Game 1, the Celtics winning, I said the gap between Steph Curry and Jason Tatum is massive. It's way bigger than I thought it was. And it's not because, Tatum had a bad Game 1, Steph had a great Game 1. It wasn't about that. It's that despite misses, despite makes, Steph was aggressive. You saw it last night, just constantly making the defense shift. I mean, you could see these freeze frames where 4 Celtics are guarding Steph Curry because he is just moving constantly, setting up teammates, ball movement, shot. off the dribble, everything. Steph was everywhere defensively. Well, we got to start giving Steph his credit on the defensive end of the floor, man. He's doing good things on that end. Let's stop acting like he's, like James Harden on the defensive end. Steph can play a little defense. He's not Draymond. He's not, some of these other guys, Wiggins or Looney, but he can play defense. I saw what he did to Peyton Pritchard and even Al Horford. Steph shut down Al Horford in the post last night, something that I definitely did not see coming. But overall, like I said, great game 2 win, rather, for my Golden State Warriors. This is a tied series. Basically, at this point, it's a best of 5. Boston, for the moment, has home court advantage, and we'll see what happens. Boston doesn't have to win a road game to win a championship at this point if they take care of home court. Golden State has to win at least one road game in order to win this championship. But let me shift to Draymond Green, because Draymond was the topic of quite a bit of conversation. And we know, look, Draymond is obviously, he's part of what makes him great. I think everybody would agree with this, even those who don't like Draymond. And, even as a Warriors fan, I can understand why fans of other teams maybe don't have Draymond Green that high on their list of guys they like. But I think with Draymond, something we'd all agree on is his emotions, which sometimes get the best of him, but his emotions are part of what makes him a great player. And that's sort of leading me into my bigger point that Draymond Green, it's weird. I don't really get it. There are cities in America, pro sports cities in America, that love to embrace sort of the tough guy, scratch and claw type of mentality. Detroit, Philadelphia, Boston, Oakland, right? Even though Oakland's lost the Warriors and the Raiders. But these pro sports cities that embrace that sort of tough guy mindset. And for Boston, love that city. I'm a Red Sox fan. But for Boston, a city that is prided, one of those cities that prides itself on that sort of mentality, man, they are soft about Draymond Green. And I'll explain. So, what Draymond Green is for the Warriors is what Dennis Rodman was for the Bulls. And if you want to, I don't like how Draymond and Rodman get compared a lot in terms of their games. They played completely different, brands of basketball, but their role on their teams was fairly similar. They're the bouncer at the club. Like that's really who they are. And it wasn't just that Dennis Rodman was a great rebounder. It's not that he could get 25, 30 rebounds a game if he wanted to. It's not just that. I mean, and you look at today's NBA, Jonas Valanciunas and Andre Drummond can get 20 rebounds a game. They can score in double figures even. They don't come even close to the impact that that Dennis Rodman gave back in the day. Why? Because Dennis got in your head, right? Dennis would screw with you mentally and make you doubt yourself. And he, obviously maybe go a little extracurricular, kind of toe the line a little bit, right? We saw with those battles with Karl Malone. Dennis got in Karl Malone's head in those 97 and then 98 finals especially. That's who Draymond Green is. I mean, we see, last night, sorry for the podcast size, but we're showing sort of the reel of him sort of getting in guys' heads. He's shoving with Grant Williams, which ended up getting Draymond his first and only technical foul. I don't know how on earth that wasn't a foul on Draymond. They called it on Grant. But kind of shoving, going back and forth, getting in their head. Draymond at one point told the game, Grant Williams, you want to be me, but you're not. And this was the playing question, right? He fouls Jaylen Brown on a three-point shot. And then there's some push and shoving going on. Jaylen Brown said after the game that Draymond was trying to pull his pants down. I don't know about that. But it's a little bit of a scuffle, right? One more look at it. This notion that Draymond should have picked up a technical. And I've heard a lot of people say, well, any other game, Draymond would have picked up a T. You're right. He would have. But it's not any other game. It's the finals we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So when we're talking about the sort of vibe around the finals, here's what's going through officials' minds. They're going to let the teams play, which you would think would actually favor Boston. So I don't know why Celtics fans are complaining. But the thing about it is, what's going through officials' heads is like, I can't toss Draymond Green out of an NBA Finals game. I can't toss Jaylen Brown out of an NBA Finals game. I'm not even going to hand out a technical unless I have to. And I'm darn sure not going to hand out a second technical unless it's just like like a Dylan Brooks player, so like a Malice the Palace. Like, it's got to be bad for me to toss you out of a finals game, especially if you're a star player. At the end of the day, everybody wants both teams to be healthy. Everybody wants both teams to be whole. They want to see them on the court. They want to see the best players in the world go at it for the Larry O'Brien trophy. But ultimately, what it comes down to is that this, you would think this type of basketball actually favors Boston, yet it's the Celtics fans, who are complaining. I mean, we romanticize the Celtics and the Bulls and the Knicks and all these teams of the 80s and the 90s, but then we see a player who kind of embodies that a little bit. Now we got a problem. I don't know. I'm just saying. All right. Joining the show now, love having him on, is a guy who I've been on the Across the Pond Sports Network. Shout out to all those people over there on the basketball show twice with him as the host. He's also got his own podcast, the Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. Would you please welcome to the show Rory Mitchell to Carving It Up Live. How you doing, my man?
My man, what's up? We here. What's going on?
Listen, it's great to have you on the show. Like I said, I was on your NBA show a couple times this during the regular season and early in the playoffs, so it's great to have you on. Before we even talk any basketball and anything like that, because I'd love to hear your opinions on these finals, I want to talk a little bit about your podcast. It's called, like I said, the Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. Talk about what that's all about, and you've really had a lot of success with the show since you started, a couple of years ago?
It's been 5+ years. Mitchell
5+ years.
Yeah, man. 5+ years. Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. A lot of conversations, a lot of dialogue, a lot of rebranding. But it's all about self-development, entrepreneurship, overcoming adversity, talking about some relationships and all that great stuff. Not really the sports guy, but I'm here today. Let's talk that Golden State. I feel like I want to go to sleep though.
What's that?
I said I feel like I'm going to go to sleep though.
I know. Like, listen, man, it's been and like I said, shouts to you and your podcast. It's great content. I highly advise everybody go check it out. It's on all podcasting platforms. Is it on YouTube? I think it's on YouTube.
Officially Rory, man. Officially Rory.
Man, everybody go check that stuff out. But to these finals, I think it's really interesting. Back to what I was talking about with Draymond Green. He gets a bad rep. I get it, right? He toes the line. There's no question about it. But sort of talk about, like, in your opinion, with Draymond Green, what he's brought to the Warriors, and does he not just toe the line? Does he step over it occasionally? And do you think the refs are maybe letting it go a little too much, like some are suggesting?
He doesn't step over the line. He's just there. He's the antagonist. It's another Dennis Rodman all over again. But I think everybody looks at it and they see, oh, who's this guy named Draymond? He's exuberant. He's loud. He's in your face. If I'm Steve Kerr, sometimes you got to put the dog on the leash of just a teeny bit, you know what I mean? And have those conversations. But it's no different what we see with Dennis Rodman. You know what I mean? But see, a lot of folks don't want to have those conversations. Draymond's the heart and soul of Golden State. We know that. He's the glue. You know what I mean? Yep. He's the knife to the bread to the butter. You know what I mean? Yeah. You got to figure out who the bread is and who the butter is. But he's the knife and he's the spread. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I think that's I think that ultimately sort of sums up Draymond Green is, and you hear this a lot, that he is the heart and soul of the Warriors. You don't want, at the end of the day, you don't want, this goes for anybody, even just outside of sports, like, you don't want anybody to have to play a role that they're not comfortable playing, right? And I think that's what's great about Golden State and any great culture in any business, is that everybody plays their role. Don't ask somebody to do something that maybe they're not comfortable doing. Like, I don't want Steph Curry or Klay Thompson playing the Draymond Green role. It's not natural. That's not who they are, right? And I don't want Draymond Green to play the Steph Curry role, because number one, we know he can't shoot like Steph. But he's there, like you said, to be the antagonist, to be sort of that guy who gets in people's heads. We saw it last night with the Celtics, and I think to a certain degree it did get in their heads a little bit. But talking about Steph, I've made the case that on this show, if I think he needs a Finals MVP to do so, but I think if he wins this championship, wins Finals MVP, and right now you could argue he's the front runner to do so, I think he's a top 10 player to ever play this game. What say you?
That's a great question. You say if you're a Golden State Warriors guy, I'm a Golden State Warriors guy. You say if they win the championship, listen, ladies and gentlemen, it's when they're going to win the championship.
I love it.
You know they're going to win the championship.
Say it louder for the people in the back, Rory.
I said when they win this ring. So does it put them in the top 10 list? I'm in my 30s. It's a tough decision. I don't know if I can make that decision yet. I really don't. Because there's so many players that come ahead of him. I have people trying to tell me, well, my co-host, or gonna say the host, he's gonna get mad when I just said that. But the host,
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like I'm the host, you know what I mean? Is what it is.
Oh, of
But
course.
he gets it. He says that Steph Curry's over Kobe Bryant.
No, nope.
And I'm like, are you crazy?
Yeah, that's pushing it.
So there's Kobe, there's Jordan, there's LeBron. That's 3.
Right.
Now, your other one's Larry Bird,
Larry
Magic
Bird's an
Johnson.
interesting one. Magic,
Magic
Magic I
Johnson's in
give you.
there.
I give you Magic. Larry's an interesting one, Rory, because Steph would have more championships than Bird, one fewer MVP, but you got a unanimous MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Changed the way the game's played. Heck, you could say, well, I think all of Larry's two out of Larry's 3 championships came against Magic Johnson. Well, you could say 3 out of Steph's possible 4 came against LeBron James.
But here's the topic that they don't want to talk about. Larry Bird actually changed the game of shooting also too at the big man position.
Okay. Yeah, he did.
He was a 3, but you know what? He was doing things before Dirk could even was saying goo goo gaga coming out the womb. You know what I mean? So you got to put Larry up in there.
Okay.
I think you got to put somewhere Shaq in that conversation also too. You got to reign in dominance.
Yes.
So I've narrowed the list down. That's what now 7 names I've given you.
You gave me 8, 7. Yeah, I think it's 7. Yeah,
Those 7 names there.
So you're talking about Wilt, Russell.
Don't put Wilt in there. You want to know why I don't put Wilt in there? Because the game changed. There wasn't really a lot of organic rules. He was playing in a key where you could sit there parked like a school bus.
Right.
What's up with that? You know what I mean? Bill Russell's in that conversation also too. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's no specific order. These are the names I'm firing out because I feel like there's so many different elements that you can plug and play. Some people are going to say Isaiah Thomas. But I would say
I don't know about Isaiah.
I would say top 15. Some people are going to say Dominic Wilkins, top 20. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Steph, he's a fringe top 15. And I hate to do that to people. I know. He's a fringe top 15 because Scottie Pippen, you got to think about also too.
I'm not putting Scottie over Steph. No. I love Scottie. I'm the ultimate Scottie defender, but no, sir. Hey, I can't put him over Steph. No.
It's a tough list, man. It's a tough list. It is. I think that's its own podcast conversation. I think there's a lot of work that you got to put into that. I think it's a panel conversation. I think everybody comes with their top 10, and then you just plug and play it and see what happens.
We got to do that. Yeah, I think you just gave me a good podcast idea. I appreciate
Let's do it. I'll be there.
We got to do it. John says, John Rivera, fan perspective. He says top 20. I think obviously he's in the top 20. And John just says Dunk. Yeah, Duncan's another guy you got to mention over Steph. You got Tim Duncan. Tim's the greatest guy to ever play the power forward position. I'm putting Duncan over Steph. But yes, it's definitely an interesting conversation. So somebody else that some could argue would put over Steph, and this is a whole nother discussion. There's a lot of discussion right now with the whole Kevin Durant dynamic and how they got into the finals without him, and he got swept by this same team that the Warriors are playing in the finals, and all that. What's sort of your take on the it seemed like a pretty friendly back and forth between Draymond and KD about how Steph was double teamed more in the finals and just that whole dynamic with KD and the Warriors?
He needs to get rid of whatever accounts he has. I've been saying this. KD is a clown, and KD should have never left Golden State because arguably he may have had another ring at some point in time. Now, where does that ring fall in place? Could have happened 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Could have. It's a possibility. Sure. You know what I mean? KD's just trying to make friends here. He's trying to be back in the conversation. It's like how we were NBA Finals and we have LeBron James's name all over the airwaves. The man's not even in the finals, but we still insert him into the finals. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So sorry, LeBron fans. I can't do that either. You know what I mean? KD should focus on offseason. KD should also focus on, is it time for me to get traded? Is it time for me to, get some players over there? We'll see what happens. But stop the Twitter banter, man. If it's not Michael Rappaport, it's Draymond Green, it's whoever. It's Skip, it's Shannon 1 minute. Like,
it's
a good old cupcake needs to just chill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing. And like I say, I put up the stat the other day. the number of double teams that Steph and KD both received in the finals. I mean, it's 80-2 in favor of Steph, and yet Steph was, outscored KD in 3 of the 4 games. And so that's sort of, Draymond talked about last night, the offense runs through Steph, that their defenses are more focused on Steph. Ty Lue talked about it, the former head coach of the Cavs, now with the Clippers. And so, I mean, that's what it comes down to is to me, KD is the most gifted scorer I've ever seen. I've never seen a guy you're talking about a guy who's 7 feet tall, can get whatever shot he wants, whenever he wants it. But KD, he can drop 40. His 40 is different than Steph's 40. Because Steph's 40 is like when Jordan would dunk on somebody's big man, it would just demoralize the entire basketball team. You have the tongue out, you have maybe the sort of like the death stare. Steph's threes from 30 plus feet out, it's like, oh man, we just played perfect defense and there's nothing we could do about this. So I think it comes down to that too. A little transition to the Celtics. I've really bought into Jason Tatum this postseason. I think that considering the run that he has been on, I think, in my opinion, he's a top 10 player currently in the NBA, especially at the age of 24. He's only getting better. I haven't liked what I've seen, though, through the first 2 games. I haven't liked his aggressiveness or lack thereof. What's your take on, I know we talked about Jason Tatum when I was on the basketball show on Across the Pond. What's your take on Jason Tatum and where he can ascend to as a player in this league?
The lights are bright. And now it's time for him to show up. All those texts to Kobe, are they working? No disrespect to the Mamba, but Jason Tatum now is getting that taste. Now, the taste doesn't mean that it's going to be the most delicious meal you ever had. You have a one-time chance to get to this NBA Finals and show up, put up. Like I said, I don't feel they're winning the championship, and if they do, hats off to them.
Right.
But this is now where you have to make your impact, because you maybe never ever get there again, to be honest. When you think about that Eastern Conference and you got Giannis's of the world that are still over there, KD at the moment still over there, teams are getting better, right? What Boston did this season is a win in itself. And I don't want any Boston Celtics fan or any basketball fan to take that for granted, because I'm surprised they got here. They ran through the gauntlet. You know what I mean? They went from Brooklyn, Milwaukee to overrated Miami, but that's a whole nother topic for another day. Jason Tatum's ascension now has to be, we go back home, I have to show up. You got to show up, put up the points. Stop being so hesitant. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's what happens when the bright lights gets on these stars. You know what I mean? It's like wrestling terminology here. Who does Jason Tatum favor right now in WWE? I would say he's more like who's that name here?
I'm not a wrestling guy, so you'll have to explain.
Yeah. So he's like the Miz.
Okay.
All flash, but no flair. Had a memorable championship run, but it was like a cup of coffee. It's like your morning coffee. You sip it, it's done. It's game over. You know what I mean? So for Jason Tatum right now, if he wins this championship, I think he's top 7 in the league. You could easily slide him into the top 5. But that changes every year. You know what I mean? Because players are going to get better. Players are going to drop down. They're going to diminish. So he's got to show up. You know what I mean? And the rest of the team's got to rally behind him, because he is the guy. He was hitting some shots last night. I was like, okay. But your points that you put up have to be dramatic blows. It's like a title fight in boxing. You know what I mean? You can't just be peppering a guy for all 12 rounds. You don't have Floyd Mayweather ability in you. You got to go out there and you got to be Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, and knock it out. Can you do it? Yet to remain to be seen.
Well, that's you tapped into a really great point that I was going to talk about. That's what Golden State, Golden State and Boston are 2 pretty evenly matched teams. Like I said in the show, what both teams do, what one team does well, the other team just does as well. It does just as well, if not better. But what Golden State has that Boston doesn't have, like you mentioned, is a sort of knockout punch, which for the Warriors is the third quarter. They literally change the outcome of games in these quarters. So, I mean, like you said, when you talk about that, and my issue with Tatum is, and I talked about early on the show and on Friday, the gap between he and Steph is bigger than I thought it was. Because one thing you see with Steph, if he's missing, if he's knocking down shots, is he is constantly aggressive, going at guys. If he's going to draw a double team, get somebody set up, get Looney set up underneath the basket, or getting his own shot. And that's the thing. What makes Steph great, what makes a lot of these guys great, is they never lose confidence. Some of this with Jason Tatum, I think, is a confidence issue. And in that first half, what he hit 4 or 5 threes. He was looking great. But once the game started to slip away, it felt like he sort of faded away with it. And so that's what I think it came down to. But shifting from these finals a little bit, sticking in the NBA, the news, I don't think anybody was necessarily that surprised that it happened. Quin Snyder stepped down from the Utah Jazz after being there for 8 years as the head coach. My takeaway is that Quin Snyder is going to be a head coach of the NBA at some point in the future. He's done a great job there in Utah. I think he's the second winningest coach in their team's history. I cannot envision a scenario where Donovan Mitchell stays, especially if they keep Rudy Gobert. We know the dynamic between those two. What's your take on that whole scenario about the Jazz, specifically for Donovan Mitchell?
There's not really any take. Who would want to play in Utah? I've been saying it. It's Utah. Like, what's in Utah? They're the only major sports team that I know of that's over there, and this is no ignorance to if I'm missing something. It's the only major sports team. Utah hasn't been relevant since Karl Malone and John Stockton. They haven't been relevant since Jordan crossed up Byron Russell and hit that little mid-range. So Donovan Mitchell, Spider, come on now. Go home. Go to New York. Go to the Mecca, right? If he doesn't go to the Mecca, maybe you go to Chicago, right? There's a lot of different scenarios. Heck, I know them Toronto Raptors could use a star player again. Make that deal. Make that trade. Trade Pascal Siakam and Donovan Mitchell. I think that's the move. I really do think that's the move because you now have youth, but you have an ability to have a star player that can probably push you to the second round. You know what I mean? And what's up?
I think you make a good. I was thinking about Chicago. Chicago has a lot of young assets, and they're in the Eastern Conference. So it's not like they're gonna have to play Donovan Mitchell 4 times a year. That's a really good point. I never thought about Chicago. Everybody's talking about the Knicks, and he's from there, obviously, and they're just starving for a true star player. That's an interesting one, but keep going.
Yeah, so I think Toronto's the move.
Sure.
For Donovan. It has to be the move because it puts you down into the second round at least. You know what I mean? And everybody needs that star player. I'm sorry, Toronto. It's not Fred VanVleet. It's Scotty Barnes is looking like it's going to be the guy right now. But give him time. Give him time. You know what I mean? But Donovan he's a product of his own environment. And again, Utah is not relevant. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the organization. They're not a relevant franchise. And if you're wanting to win, or at least try to contend for a title, you gotta go somewhere else. You know what I mean? So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Well, I mean, you and I both know a wise man once said that the biggest enemy of great is good, because if you're great or if you're terrible, you have a direction. Like if you're right in the middle of good, Utah, Toronto is another team you could sort of throw in there. They never really suck, you know what I'm saying? But they're right in that middle tier. They don't know what to do. They don't know, okay, is this the group that we can maybe contend with, or do we need to blow this up and wash, rinse, repeat? And that's sort of where Utah is right now. I would be shocked if Rudy Gobert is even back next year. I think the most likely scenario is they trade those 2 stars. They say, hey, we're just going to go into rebuild. The thing about the Utah Jazz, they draft well. They're a good drafting team. They probably trade Mike Conley as well. He's a veteran. He's not going to play for.
I wouldn't want that.
Oh, yes. It's not a great contract. You're right.
He's older.
Yeah.
He's old in the tooth. Veteran leadership. I don't know where you put him. Maybe you put that into LA. I don't know.
Oh, man, you kidding me? That actually, that could be an interesting trade. Maybe a Mike Conley for Westbrook, and maybe they buy Westbrook out.
Yeah, but after what the coach came on and said, oh, Westbrook this, Westbrook that,
that's a whole different story.
It looks like the Mickey Mouse Club over there in LA. And I'm going to say something right now. They either have to trade either LeBron or AD. That's all I'm going to say. Trade one of the two.
I would be stunned if they trade LeBron.
They got to trade one of the two.
They do. I don't think if the goal is championship, it comes down to, if we're talking about the Lakers, it comes down to where they think they are. If they think that they are a franchise that can truly compete right now, the most likely of that trade would then be Anthony Davis. Because we know we've never seen AD as the best player in a championship team. We've seen LeBron do it 4 times and get to the finals, 6 other times after that. So, I mean, yeah, it's the Lakers are kind of in quicksand. They don't have assets. They've got an albatross of a contract in Russell Westbrook, and they got to, it's not like he's giving them much on the court anyway. So I liked the Darvin Ham hire. outside of that, like I said, they feel like a play-in team. Maybe they get in the playoffs and they get bounced by Golden State or Memphis or something. I don't know, but I mean, look, it's gonna be an interesting offseason. And so, well, you already gave me your prediction. You said when the Golden State Warriors win the championship, and I am in lockstep with you. I agree they will win this finals. But give me something to look out for these, however many, could be as many as 5 games moving forward. I said earlier in the show, I feel like we are going to know definitively who's going to win the series, regardless of these 2 games, by game 4. So what's sort of your takeaway? What do you think is going to happen these next few games?
You ready? Remember when LeBron put up the 40 some odd points?
Which year?
With the year that they I think we were on the fringe of getting put out. Remember that 40 plus point game he put up?
Oh, yeah. I got you.
And then Jimmy Butler just did it.
Yep.
Steph Curry or Klay Thompson will put up that same amount of points come game 4. I'm gonna say game 4. Wednesday night, ladies and gentlemen, Golden State wins. Game 4 will come down to all the marbles because the championship celebration, it's gonna be back in Golden State, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember that. Chase Center, the Bay Area. You know what I mean? So that's what I would tell people right now to look out for. Steph is gunning for this MVP.
Oh,
yes. When he gets it, I want people to put respect on that man's name. It's been too much years of disrespect. Oh, KD this. Oh, he 73 win team couldn't do this. Whatever. We already know what happens. If Draymond doesn't get suspended, me and you both know that's a championship ring. This is supposed to be the 5th ring in my books. 5. See, 5. Wherever the camera is, 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Sure.
So that's what I'm looking for. Real short, simple. Historic performance.
Historical performance by the Splash Brothers. Game 4 seems like a good time for that to happen between those two. So you said you said that, and you said the celebration is going to be back in the Bay Area in San Francisco at the Chase Center. Are we talking 5 or 7? Because I said 5 before the series over. You think this baby's going the distance, or it's going to be over quick?
I still
Monday?
say it's 6, but then at the end of the day, that kind of goes back. I don't want them hosting that trophy anywhere in Boston, personally. I've been there. I don't like when teams win in enemy lines. It's kind of corny. It's not, and then the fans are cheering because they see a cheer. Like, come on now. Sure. You know what I mean? It's going 6, but the NBA loves Game 7. I've always been saying that. NBA loves Game 7. You know what I mean? But if it's a Game 7, it's going to be a 20-point blowout. It's what's going to happen.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, Boston is good. Boston should be happy where they are. Fans, I'm sorry to tell you this. You're looking at a potential another dynasty run over in Golden State. And there's nothing you can do about it. And here's what's the crazy thing about it too. I'm going to want to get this out. They've got pieces to do whatever they want to do in this league. Now, if those pieces are going to be a Joel Embiid, guess what? It's a Joel Embiid. If those pieces want to be, hey, maybe we'll trade the whole mortgage, all of our youth to go get LeBron. I want to see that. And the reason why I'm going to tell you I want to see LeBron in Golden State is I want to see what the league does after that. I just want to see a chaos and anarchy. I'm not even a LeBron guy, but LeBron, Steph, and Klay, and Draymond. Just put it to bed. Ratings out the roof. They hated LeBron when he went to Miami.
Oh my goodness.
That's New World Order right there. Giannis might as well have to call up KD and say, yo, KD, come. I don't even think they beat that. I don't think anybody beats that except for injuries.
No.
It's overkill. It's overkill.
You're right. That because I feel like LeBron, as great as a fit KD is, as great of a fit as KD was in Golden State with the way he plays, LeBron would be even better because we talk about probably the most dominant finisher at the rim for a small forward we've ever seen, and arguably the greatest passer outside of Magic Johnson we've ever seen. And he's got two of the greatest shooters who's ever lived, definitely the greatest shooters ever lived. On either wing. Yeah, I agree with you. That's scary, but. I mean, yeah. So you're saying it's going to be over in at the Chase Center, and the Warriors will clinch it, and it will be fun times for all of Dub Nation, and a very fun off seasons because then we get to gloat. It's part of.
You're popping champagne, apple juice, milk, whatever you want to do. That's what's happening.
That's what it is.
Light up the cigars, ladies and gentlemen. That's it.
I agree with you. It's going to be fun. I agree with you. It's on the horizon. The Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast. Rory Mitchell, appreciate you coming on the show, my man. Before you go, tell the people they can find your show.
Hey, man, Apple, Spotify, Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast, YouTube, officially Rory. That's real simple, real sweet. And I appreciate this time. I'm working on getting you to come on because we're not going to talk sports. I want to know why you got into sports. You know what I mean? And things like that when you come on my platform. So you already know. That's we're going to set that up very, very soon.
All right, yes, sir. I appreciate you coming on, my man.
Hey,
how you doing? And
it's all love, man. All love.
Hey, yes, sir. Hey, take care.
Yeah, man. Later.
That was Rory Mitchell of the Mitchell Report Unleashed podcast, as well as Across the Pond Sports. Listen, they do great stuff over there. He does great stuff with them and individually with his show. So please go check his content out. And listen, he is. I'm going to go in and write it down because I don't want to forget that he made these predictions. So let's see. Series is over in the Bay. I did predict that as well, but I want to make sure that he's right as well. And then what else did he say? The Stephen Klay goes for whatever it is, 30 plus in game 4. And that sort of shifts me to Klay Thompson. And obviously he's been in a slump. Hold on, in game 4. All right, bingo, I got it now. All right, so yeah, like I said, Klay Thompson's been in a slump. He's had a very rough couple of games to start this finals, and that's putting it mildly. Game 1, he only scored 15. Wasn't horribly efficient in doing so. He scored 15 points on 6 for 14 for the field and hit 3 3-pointers. And he was offensively, I thought he was great defensively, but offensively he was even worse in game 2. Went 4 for 19 for the field, 1 for 8 from 3 with 11 points. It was just a rough night for him offensively. And these playoffs, for the most part, have been kind of rough on him. It's really been, game 6 against Memphis, game 6 Klay, and then game 5 against the Dallas Mavericks. Now they're calling him closeout Klay. I like game 6 Klay a little better because that's original. That's been around for a while. Let's keep it game 6 Klay. But I think what you're seeing right now is that he's still not completely up to it felt like he was sort of getting more comfortable at the end of the regular season. I think he scored 30-plus points in the last 3 games of the regular season. And so I'm thinking, oh, he's back. He's Klay Thompson again. He'd never done that before in his career, and of all seasons, he did it this year, coming off 2 major injuries. And so I think at that point, his body, his what he was used to, had gotten up to speed with regular season basketball. But we all know postseason is a different sport, pretty much, just like baseball. And so once we get to the finals, he's still not all the way acclimated to the style of play completely, from when he first got hurt in 2019 in the finals 3 years ago. And so here's my take on Klay. I got 2 takes on Klay. The first one is this. He's not going to consistently give you 20 points a game throughout the course of these finals, right? It's going to have to, obviously Steph drives the car. We know that. Steph's going to do his thing. He's going to do his job. I'm not the slightest bit worried about Steph. Draymond's not an offensive threat, but he holds it down the defensive end of the floor. His communication is unbelievable. Getting in dudes' heads like we talked about last night. But Steph's going to need guys like, he's going to need 20 a night from Wiggins. He's going to need, even if Poole doesn't give you 20, 25 points, can he do it efficiently? Does Steve Kerr not allow him to be in positions defensively where Boston's just going at him like in game 1? Right, we didn't really get to see, whether or not that scenario unfolded because Jordan Poole was, obviously he was, he hit that buzzer beat at the end of the third quarter, and it was a complete blowout come fourth, and he played a little bit in the fourth, but of course that game was completely out of reach of Boston. Golden State went up by as many as 29 points, so that thing was a wrap. But can you get scores off the bench? Can you get Otto Porter to hit 3 threes? Can you get Bjelica to give you 7 points, right? I really like the Steve Kerr play Bjelica last night. I thought he's been really good in the playoffs. Can Kevon Looney give you double figures? So it's going to have to be, as Shaq calls them, the others that are going to have to step up. And that is my concern, my only concern for Golden State going to Boston, is the role players, as we know, aren't as good on the road. That, of course, favors Boston. Now, you could argue, home, of course, then again, Grant Williams scored 27 points in a Game 7 of the Eastern Conference second round against the defending champs, the Milwaukee Bucks. But that's what tends to happen at home for the role players. And so that's going to be in Boston's favor without a question in Game 3. I'll sort of save that for my prediction. But can Klay Thompson be efficient? That's kind of what I need from him. Part of it is he hasn't gotten a ton of good looks. Some of that is Boston's a great defensive team. They're not going to allow him to get a ton of great looks. And some of it is, again, physically, he's still not acclimated to NBA Finals speed. So that sort of leads me into my second take, that with Klay Thompson playing the way that he's played, we've seen the highs and we've seen the lows, like last night. What's really interesting, I'm hearing a lot of people say, oh, now's the time, you got to move on from Klay. And no, here's the thing. This summer is going to be the first normal offseason for Klay Thompson since 2018. Because 2019, he tore the ACL, started his rehab that summer. 2020, he was still coming off the ACL rehab. He wasn't all the way back. 2021, he was rehabbing his Achilles. This is going to be his first normal offseason in 4 years. So he's, instead of working on his left leg or his right heel, he's going to get to work on his game. Like, not like just, shooting in the gym just to get shots up, but limited at basketball activity. He's going to be able to work on his game, getting shots off the dribble, catch and shoot, moving, cutting. He's going to be more acclimated to that come next season. This is why I said, ladies and gentlemen, that this is the season to beat the Warriors. They dealt with injuries from game 1 of the regular season on to the playoffs. You got a young team with Poole and Kuminga and Moody. You've got, Western Conference that had the up-and-coming Grizzlies, the Suns, who, all they did was win 64 games. This is the year. Because the trio's going to be back, the three amigos, as I call them. Steph, Klay, Draymond. Klay's going to be better because, again, he's got a normal offseason now. He is only 32. He's not 40. The young players are only going to get better. Jordan Poole's, 23, 4? He's going to get better. Kuminga, I think, is going to be a beast in this league. You got to remember, the kid's 19 years old. And we've seen those flashes like, oh, boy. It's kind of like, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as the guy I'm going to mention, because I think the guy I'm about to mention is killing it. But Giannis, we saw that he got the Greek freak pretty early on, like year 2, because we're like, this dude is an athletic freak. We've never seen anything like this. A guy who can put the ball on the floor the way he can and just bully people down low. Bully him. Kuminga's not the type that's just going to bully you down low, at least yet. But his athleticism is through the roof. Moses Moody is going to get better as a spot-up shooter and going off the dribble. I'm just saying. This, and James Wiseman hasn't even played. You got the young kid Wiseman. This was the year to beat the Warriors. So if you're the Celtics, be the team that beats the Warriors. If not, these next 2-3 years are going to be scary hours for the rest of the NBA. Because this has not been the perfect year. I mean, Steve Kerr, right in the middle of a playoff series against Memphis, gets COVID, misses game 4 on against the Grizzlies. Like, so many things have went wrong for the Warriors this season, yet they're 3 wins away from a championship. Injuries. COVID, of course, everybody's to deal with that, but not many teams have ever had to really deal with COVID in the playoffs. Boston dealt with it against Miami. Al Horford got COVID, and I think he played game, if I remember correctly, I think he played game 2. So it was only for a game. Steve Kerr missed 3, and we know his impact on the team in terms of adjustments and obviously getting the guys into their sets, the communication with Steph and Poole running the point guard position. So this is the year to beat the Warriors. But for Klay Thompson, look, he's going to have some highs and lows in the series. Thus far, it's been mostly lows through the first 2 games. But ultimately what it comes down to is, look, you got to be able to be efficient. Keep doing what you're doing defensively, because Klay's been like he had a play where he met Jaylen Brown at the rim. He didn't block the shot, but he got a hand up, and Brown missed the layup. And so just being able to, he looks good defensively. He's moving well with Brown and with Tatum and with Smart and Derek White. Yeah, and something else too I forgot to bring up. Draymond Green talked about after game 1. Draymond, seemed pretty much unfazed. Most of the Warriors players and even Steve Kerr seemed a little bit shocked, understandably so, that they just, blown a 12-point fourth quarter lead and lost by 12. 24-point turnaround. But Draymond was really the only Warrior after the game who didn't seem that affected, because he said, look, Derek White, Al Horford, Marcus Smart all went 15 for 23. And he sort of looked at the stat sheet. Yeah, we'll be fine. Basically say, that's not going to happen again. Those three guys are not going to shoot a combined whatever it was for the field. Like, what is it, 60% from the field? Yeah, 65% from the field. That's not going to happen again. And you look at their stat lines last night. Al Horford went 1 for 4. Marcus Smart went 1 for 6. Derek White went 4 for 13. So combined, they gave you 14 points. That's not going to happen. They're not going to be that bad in game 3 moving forward, but they're not going to be as great as they were in game 1. And like I said on Friday, Al Horford's a Hall of Famer. He don't even need a championship. He's a Hall of Famer, given his college and pro career. But let's stop it with this nonsense about the role players are going to carry Boston. And so that leads me into what is going to be, without question, what's going to be a pretty crazy game 3. You think about all the twists and turns of the first 2 games in this series. You think about Boston stealing game 1 on the road in Golden State. You think about the Warriors taking game 2 at home, as they should have. Like I said, it was a must-win game. But we move into what is the tiebreaker at this point. Game 3 of the 2022 NBA Finals, which I will predict right now. So you got the Boston Celtics at home, where they have been 5-4 in these playoffs. Right now, Vegas likes them slightly over the Warriors. Home team, of course, gets 3 points, and they're favored -3.5. So they like Boston just ever so slightly. This, to me, Game 3 was the one game that I said coming into the series that I felt most confident that Boston could win, because I thought Golden State was going to take the first 2 games at home. Boston's going to play desperate. Golden State knows they don't have to win Game 3. Game 4 is kind of the one to get for them. And Boston would take game 3, by 10 points or so. But of course, that did not happen. Boston took game 1, Golden State took game 2. So, again, what we know about role players is they're much better at home. The comfort, you sleep in your own bed the night before, you're with your homeboys. You don't have to stay in a hotel. You don't have to drive a bus to the game. You drive to the game. The fans are on your side. Yeah, look, some players play better on the road because they don't like, sort of the pressure of home. They sort of embrace the animosity like us against the world on the road. And that's kind of been the case with the Celtics. That's why they've been better on the road than at home. And I think they're 8-2 on the road. So when you look at this game 3, this isn't the typical home court advantage, certainly that you would think in the finals. Now look, Boston is going to be rocking at the TD Garden on Wednesday night. I mean, it's going to be nuts. This is a city that expects nothing but championships. From the Bruins to the Patriots to the Red Sox to the Celtics. This is a championship-level town. If it ain't a championship, it's a failed season. That is how that city views their teams. They're going to be loud. They haven't been to the finals in 12 years, 2010. And so they're going to be ready to go. So Golden State's going to have to deal. This is probably going to be the toughest road opponent for the Warriors this postseason. Denver, no disrespect to those fans, not much of a home court advantage outside of the altitude. Memphis, tough home court, tough home court to have to go to if you're an opponent. At the end of the day, you don't fear the Grizzlies. Not this stage yet. They're coming. And then in Dallas, not a huge home court, just like the Cowboys. But Boston's a different story. So what it's going to come down to, what I'm going to be watching closely, can the Warriors weather the first quarter storm from the Celtics? Because I expect, as Rory talked about, Jason Tatum's going to come out aggressive. Jaylen Brown's going to come out aggressive. I wouldn't be shocked if Marcus Smart goes like 2 for 2 from 3. I mean, that team is going to feed off of the road crowd's intensity, or the home crowd's intensity. But we know this about the Warriors. As I mentioned earlier, 26 consecutive playoff series, they have won at least one road game. That is, I don't know if that's a record. If it's not, it's pretty darn close. But that's mind-blowing. And the Warriors know they have to win a game on the road to win the championship. They have to. Boston's got the home court advantage. And so what it comes down to is this, and we're talking about a little bit of the sports psychology of this. Golden State knows going into Game 3, if they lose Game 3, they go into Game 4, they're down 2-1. This is actually a scenario that they were in back in 2015 against the Cavs. Down 2-1 with Game 4 on the road. They know that if they get this Game 3, Game 4, all the pressure's back on Boston because Golden State's now taking home court back, regardless if the Celtics win Game 4. And what do we know about the Celtics? In tight situations, they struggle. They struggle a little bit. I would anticipate Boston's going to come out, like I said, just out the gates, ready to go. Marcus Smart's going to get the crowd hyped up. Draymond Green probably picks up a technical foul because maybe the crowd's going to, sort of gig him on, and Marcus Smart's going to get, and Grant Williams, and Draymond's going to get into it with everybody. And so I would anticipate Boston's up double digits at halftime. I genuinely think that. And this was a game, I told my dad last night, even, moments after the Warriors won this game. Warriors won last night. I said, I think Boston's winning Game 3. And so I've slept on it. I've stayed with that prediction throughout the day for the most part. And I think Boston builds a double-digit lead at some point in the game, I would think in the first half. But this sort of goes back to what I was talking about coming into the series, execution late. Golden State's a great third-quarter team. I doubt they take the lead going into the fourth if they're in the situation I think they're going to be in. But if they make this a 5-point game going in the fourth, and we get to 9 minutes, 8, 7, 6, 5, and that's still tight. If Boston's up 4 with 3 minutes to go, and maybe Tatum doesn't have it going a little bit, oh yeah, the temperature's going to be turned up a little bit in that big room at the TD Garden, and I believe the Warriors will seize on the opportunity. I believe Steph Curry, who will be your finals MVP, will seize on the opportunity. This will be a tight, probably the tightest game of the series. Golden State wins Game 3 by a final score of 107-106. This is going to be a down-to-the-wire, could literally come down to the last shot type of basketball game. Honestly, it would shock me if Steph Curry hit the buzzer beater. It would shock me. It seems like that type of game that he would do such. So, Golden State wins 107-106 and takes a 2-1 lead in these NBA Finals over the Boston Celtics. This is going to be nuts. This is the one mystery game of the series, and I'm like, I don't know who to pick. I'm not sure what to do, but I will stick with it. Warriors win Game 3. Probably the least confident I am in any of my picks to this point. And I said I've moved off Warriors in 5. I might as well stick with it until proven otherwise, until Boston wins a second game. But until they do, I'm gonna stick with my prediction. So Warriors win Game 3, 107-106, and that's what's gonna happen. It's gonna be a crazy night. Boston's gonna be loud. I'm sure gonna have some Red Sox, some Patriots players there. Big Poppy's David Ortiz. I think he was in Boston for Game 6 when they played the Miami Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. So my guy, my favorite all-time baseball player, Big Poppy, David Ortiz. I've seen Dustin Pedroia, my second favorite Red Sox of all time, sitting courtside. So those two will probably be there in one of these next 2 games in Beantown. But yeah, it sucked for me because I haven't really been able to wear my Red Sox hat, even though, let's go Red Sox, we're back in the wild card picture as it stands right now, which some may laugh at, and I understand. But it was a pretty rough start to the season, and they've gotten back to 500 playing the Angels, so they can create even more space between them. A little baseball news for you there. But, yeah, I haven't really been able to wear my Red Sox hat, even though they're starting to really play good baseball right now, especially the pitching has been outstanding. But I can't put that B on my head. I can't put Boston on my head until these finals are over. And if the Celtics win, I probably can't wear a Red Sox hat until after All-Star break. Seriously, I can't do it. But Game 3 is going to be nuts. I cannot wait. And so, with that said, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by as always. Be sure to catch Carving Up on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, YouTube, and on Twitter, as well as on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Anchor, if you want to listen to the podcast side of it. And speaking of podcasts, the Carving It Up U.S. Presidents Edition, Episode 8. We are almost at the end of this 10-part series. Isaac Lawson, my co-host, and I talked about 4 presidents we've gone in chronological order. Episode 8's available now. We talked about Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton. So we're sort of really moving into the modern age of presidents. So be sure to check out Carving It Up, U.S. Presidents Edition, Episode 8, available on our normal podcasting platforms as well as YouTube. So be sure to check that out. And be on the lookout for Episode 9, available on Saturday morning at 7 a.m., 4 a.m. Pacific time. wherever you listen to your podcast, as well as on YouTube. So until Thursday, in which we will react to Game 3 of the NBA Finals, have a great week, everybody. Continue to stay safe out there. God bless you all. Peace out. Just want to root for my Red Sox, man. Come on. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.